The Phillies should absolutely try to acquire a reliever from the Boston Red Sox at the trade deadline, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Aroldis Chapman. Let's talk about it next right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here, and today I thought I would talk to you about a specific Boston Red Sox reliever, not Aroldis Chapman, that would make the Phillies bullpen better. Now, maybe a little bit of a misleading headline, if you will, maybe a little bit of clickbait. My apologies for that, but I do want to start with this. Of course, Aroldis Chapman would be a huge addition for the Phillies bullpen. At age 37, Chapman is putting together one of his best seasons of his major league career. His stuff is still there. His velocity is still elite. Over 34 appearances this year so far, Chapman has a 1.45 ERA and has struck out 43 hitters in just 31 innings pitched. But perhaps what's even more impressive is that he's on pace for a career best whip. Right now, Chapman has a 0.81 whip through the first half of the season, and that's due almost exclusively to a substantially improved walk rate. He's walked just 9 hitters this year and has a 7.6% walk rate, which would be, without question, the best walk rate of his career. To put it into a little bit more perspective, the last 4 seasons, Aroldis Chapman has not had a walk rate better than 14%. So to say that Chapman is turning in one of his best seasons of his career at 37 years old is not a false statement. It's actually really incredibly impressive how good Aroldis Chapman has been this year for the Boston Red Sox. But I think with all of this, that also means that Aroldis Chapman is going to command a pretty sizable return at the trade deadline in a month's time. Now, with Dave Dombrowski and what it appears and what I think is he's going to be selectively aggressive and not entirely mortgage the future, I just have a feeling that Aroldis Chapman is going to cost more than the Phillies are going to want to spend on one particular reliever. So instead, the Phillies can stay in Boston and instead turn their attention to a different Red Sox lefty who also happens to be 37, who also happens to be on a 1-year deal, and who also happens to be having one of his best seasons of his career. While it's not as flashy of a move as Aroldis Chapman, the Phillies should trade for Justin Wilson. In 30 games so far this season, over 25 innings, Wilson's posted a 2.16 ERA and has struck out 31 hitters over that span. He's given up just 1 run so far in 6 appearances in June after having a 0.87 ERA over the month of May. So far this season, he's only had 1 outing where he's given up multiple runs. That came against the Tampa Bay Rays back in April. So for you baseball savant nerds like myself, his graphs are almost entirely in the red. Everything looks the part. He's in the 76th percentile in chase rates and is in the 88th percentile or better in average exit velocity, whiff, K rates, barrel rates, hard hit percentage, and ground ball rates. He's keeping the ball on the ground. He's keeping the ball in the yard. He's limiting hard contact, and he's missing a pretty good percentage of bats while doing all of these other things. He's only been barreled once so far this year on 60 batted balls, and opponents' average exit velocity has been under 87 miles an hour so far this season. So what do his splits look like? Well, it's no secret that Wilson has thrived this year against left-handed hitting, and the Phillies, or really any team that acquires him, but strictly with the Phillies here specifically, should use him in that lefty-lefty role as much as possible. So far this season, in 40 at-bats, lefties have 5 hits. It's a 125 batting average. They've also been on base just 9 times this season. It's good for a 0.69 whip against left-handed hitters. Now, righties is a little bit of a different story. He's given up 24 base runners in less than 12 innings pitched, and it's a whip that's worse than 2. So if you can get this guy specifically against left-handed hitters, he's going to do a lot of damage out of your bullpen. He's also been much better in the last month and a half of the season. In total, 9 of the 21 hits that he's given up this year came in the month of April. Since then, opponents have been on base just 20 times in 67 plate appearances, which is good for about a 298 opponent on base percentage. He's also been much better away from Fenway Park as opposed to pitching at home. So far this year in other ballparks that the Red Sox have played, Wilson has posted a 0.79 ERA while posting a 3.65 ERA at Fenway, which is still not a bad ERA by any means. He's just been much better away from Fenway than he has been at Fenway Park this season. And the last thing of note for Wilson, of all the innings that he's pitched this season so far, he's been the most effective as a seventh inning guy. He has a .96 ERA and a .265 opponent on base percentage when pitching in the seventh inning this year. Now, it's no secret that his fastball just doesn't live up to Aroldis Chapman's. Most pitchers' fastball don't live up to Aroldis Chapman, but he's averaging about 94 to 95 with his four-seamer this year, and he's been effective with that pitch for the most part throughout the season. Opponents are hitting just 188 off the fastball and slugging, not on base percentage, are slugging 250 on the 189 fastballs that Wilson has thrown so far this year. And his expected batting average and expected slugging numbers are also in really good shape this year. So for a lefty that throws mid-90s, he's been really, really difficult, as we mentioned, specifically against left-handed hitters with that fastball. He's also generating a ton of swing and miss, as he is with most of his pitches. Nearly 37% of the time he's generating a whiff on the fastball. Outside of the fastball, Wilson features a four-pitch mix, but relies more heavily on his first three pitches. It's the fastball at 45%, his slider at 29%, and his cutter at 20%. And then he kind of sprinkles in the splitter here and there. He's thrown that about 5% of the time. Now, with the slider specifically, he's shown a willingness to throw it to both sides of the plate, and he's actually thrown the slider this year more to right-handed hitters than he has to left-handed hitters. It also is a pitch that features really good whiff rates, over 38% on the slider so far this year. And he's really willing to throw any pitch in any count, especially when he's ahead of the count. And you can see as to why. He has 24% or more put-away rate on all three of his three highest used pitches. Again, the fastball, the slider, and the cutter, they're all really effective when he gets ahead of the count. Now, with the cutter, it doesn't really move a ton. The numbers aren't great against it. It has less than 3 inches of horizontal glove side movement, but he really uses it just to miss the barrel of the bat. I think his best look with the cutter is when he's throwing it in on the hands to right-handed hitters, especially up in the zone. It doesn't have a ton of swing and miss stuff compared to the fastball and the slider, but I will say it is a good swing and miss pitch when he's spotting it effectively. He runs into trouble with it. I think for most pitchers run into trouble with the cutter is when he leaves it over the heart of the plate. Now, I will say one negative for Justin Wilson this season, unlike Chapman, who's been really good with his walk rate, is that Wilson has walked a high percentage of hitters. He's in just the 13th percentile of walk rate this year, and he's walked over 11% of the batters that he's faced. So there's absolutely no question that the walks need to improve for Wilson, but I think otherwise there is a ton to like, especially with the Phillies needing another high-leverage left-handed reliever. This makes a ton of sense. Plus, I think Wilson is likely going to cost you a lot less than Aroldis Chapman as a high-leverage reliever versus as a true closer with dominant stuff, posting one of the best seasons of his career. Listen, I'm not saying the Phillies shouldn't go after a big-time reliever. If Aroldis Chapman were to become available and the price were right, there's no question about it. The Phillies should be active in the Aroldis Chapman sweepstakes. But if they don't, I think they'll have plenty of other options. And Justin Wilson feels just about as good of one as you're going to find, especially from a left-handed reliever.